Hi, and happy Thanksgiving. I'm Donna King, editor-in-chief of Carolina Journal, joined with me with Brooke Medina from the John Locke Foundation. We're at this time of gratitude and Thanksgiving. We wanted to take this opportunity on the debrief to really recognize those who came before us and made all of our freedoms possible.
Yeah, starting with the Edenton Tea Party and the brave women of North Carolina that exhibited such courage back in 1774. So I'm looking forward to us being able to take this audience back to history 250 years ago and talk about the freedoms that were secured by those who came long before us in Edenton, North Carolina, those brave women.
Sure, sure. We're going to show you this fantastic mini documentary. Tell me a little bit about how the John Locke Foundation came up with this.
Yeah, so A Letter to the King is something that we produced earlier this year in memory in honor of the 250th anniversary of the Edenton Tea Party, which happened in Edenton, North Carolina. And it was led by Penelope Barker, who was a woman of that time, a leader in her community, who had seen many, many hardships. And this is on the tails of the Boston Tea Party. But these were women who that next year decided they wanted to also voice their protest against the King of England and what he was doing to try to put his thumb on the colonies. And so they collectivized together and they signed this document that we're calling the Letter to the King. It was the Edenton Resolves. And they told him that they weren't going to be putting up with King George's new tax system and structure on the colonies. And so they voiced their protest. They put their names on this line. And so this is the story we wanted to tell because this is not only an essential part of North Carolina history, it's a critical part of American history that just does not get told as often as it should.
Absolutely. We'll jump right into it. This is done with the North Carolina History Project, and it really illustrates the courage that this took. It's hard to overstate how risky this was for this women. They're risking their lives, their livelihoods, certainly their husbands' careers. It really was considered treasonous to go against the king in this way. Let's take a look. This is really for these women, this is their legacy. They are a huge part of North Carolina's history, of the nation's freedom, and this is their letter to the king.
In every generation, proud North Carolinians have had to resist those who would encroach on our liberty, dispossess us of our property, and attempt to rule us from a distance without regard for our will and heedless of our voices. But as you know, we are not easily tyrannized.
Edenton was once the esteemed capital of North Carolina from 1722 to 1743. While the title of capital may have shifted elsewhere by the time of the Edenton Tea Party in 1774, Edenton remained a bustling center of societal, cultural, and political engagement. Nestled as a port city, its strategic location facilitated the constant ebb and flow of goods, granting invaluable economic and trade advantages for its residents. With prosperity came refinement, and few commodities exemplified refinement as distinctly as tea imported from the distant realms of the Orient. Tea, with its exquisite flavor, graced colonial social gatherings, its consumption an honored tradition among them. Meanwhile, in Edenton, beyond the mere exchange of goods, flowed a deeper current, the dissemination of ideas.
Well, Edenton was a town that was about 1,000 people roughly. Now that's in general terms and including probably the farms in the general area. It served as a, believe it or not, actually fairly major seaport, one of the largest in North Carolina. So we actually had ships coming from all over the British Empire, all over Europe, the northern colonies, the West Indies, Caribbean, I guess as they called it then. Something like 100 ships a year could clear through this port.
Here in Edenton, we were, I think you could refer to us not only as the first capital of North Carolina, but also an intellectual center for the colony. We had patriots who signed the Declaration of Independence, so there was a lot of knowledge in Edenton about what was happening to support the patriotic cause. And of course, women would be listening to conversations. And those conversations led to the women, 51 women, deciding that they wanted to do something to support this revolutionary effort.
Penelope Barker was no stranger to adversity. She'd had a very difficult life, and it began when she was 17 years old. Her sister had passed away, as well as her father, in a really close proximity, and she actually ended up marrying her sister's husband, and then she had suddenly 3 children to take care of. When she was 17, soon her husband passed away, and then she ended up getting married again, and that husband passed away. By the time she was 28 years old, she had been widowed twice.
There's a sort of a local joke you have to explain. No, they didn't divorce, and no, she did not kill her husbands. She was one of only 2 children of a wealthy landowner. They owned the Blenheim Manor plantation, which was a large landholding. So she had what they call family money herself.
Penelope Barker was tough. This is a woman we should know. She really tapped into an unknown resource at the time in these communities. And these 51 women came together and they raised their voices for their families, for their husbands, for their freedoms.
With her 3rd marriage to Thomas Barker, it was going great. They had children. They ended up having a total of 9 children between those from the other marriage as well as their children. Pretty soon, within 4 years of their marriage, 7 out of the 9 children had died tragic deaths. She had gone through so much at such an early age that then her husband, Thomas Barker, needed to go to England. He was an agent to the crown. He ended up being gone for 16 years. 16 years she did not see her husband.
Difficulties and sorrows, death, hardship and uncertainty punctuated every period of my life. The ubiquitousness of human injustice was a reality in our time, just as it is in yours. Each generation seems more able to see the sins of their ancestors than they are their own. Along with many debts and the responsibility for an abundance of children I did not birth, I also inherited slaves, which future lovers of liberty would rightfully condemn as hypocritical, given my own struggle for liberty. Each generation walks in the light they have. My hope is that what light you have received from my example, good and bad, would lead you further on the path of liberty.
Yes, Penelope, we have continued to increase the potency of our composition, though I lack the confidence it shall ever be sufficiently standard to your satisfaction.
Do you find me so disagreeable, Elizabeth?
You are, and always have been, the most disagreeable, a trait which we all agree is well suited to our aims, and no doubt why you've come to be our leader.
Go on then, read aloud what is written.
We, the ladies of Edenton, do hereby agree not to conform to ye pernicious custom of drinking tea.
No.
No? Oh, do you not like the word pernicious? I had similar thoughts, as I have always rather enjoyed my tea, and find the preparation and consumption thereof a most pleasant reprieve from...
No, it is not the word pernicious to which I object, but rather the word agree. Since you find me so disagreeable, I find it incongruous to begin with agreement. Agreement is not what we are doing here. It needs a different word.
Different?
Something other than agree. This is not an agreement. This is a protest. This is a declaration of our resolve. It is a solemn vow. It is.
I have had my fill of vows within my nuptial agreements to Mr. King. I'd prefer to be spared any further king-directed vows, principally to the King of England. Though solemn, I have no objection to the use of solemn. Where are we? We, the ladies of Edenton, do hereby solemnly engage, not agree, not to conform to ye pernicious custom of drinking tea. Penelope, Do you believe it necessary that we absolutely abstain? Or might the mere declaration of our protest accomplish our intended end?
Elizabeth, when we affix our names to this letter, we are placing our families, our fortunes, and our very lives at risk. If we are not willing to live out our convictions with more than words, then why should we believe we are worthy of the liberty these words demand?
Well, Penelope, when you propose it in that manner, ye pernicious custom of drinking tea, or that we, the aforesaid ladies, will not promote ye ware of any manufacture from England until such time that...
Go on.
Until such time that all acts that tend to enslave this, our native country, shall be repealed.
Hear, hear.
On October 25th, 1774, Penelope Paget Barker led 50 women to sign a list of resolutions that were opposing the 1773 Tea Act that was imposed by the British Parliament. Whether there was tea or whether there was a party, we're not exactly sure what happened at that event. Some say it was at Elizabeth King's house, but regardless, the women did sign. They signed their name to these resolutions.
51 women gathered and signed a proclamation led by Penelope that they would no longer buy English tea or goods. The taxes were lowered. It was in solidarity with the Patriot movement.
Signing of the Edenton Resolves, the document that the women wrote and 51 signed their names to the document. That was the first organized, written, political activity that was a stand-alone activity by women. Well, that's pretty powerful.
Mr. Barker was a merchant, so this likely really impacted his business and his ability to support his family. But so did those taxes, and that's where we see Penelope Barker really standing up for her family. Even among the colonies, loyalists and patriots, they were often sabotaging each other and spying on each other. You didn't know who was in your court or not. This probably really elevated the Barker family among patriots, but it really put them at risk.
Her motivation was partly to show solidarity and to support the cause, but it was also out of duty. And we know from an article that was written actually in a Virginia newspaper during that time where she and members of the Edenton Tea Party had signed, and they had said that this was out of their duty and they wanted to make sure that they supported it.
Pushing back against Great Britain to defend their rights and to stop the taxation without representation.
We, the ladies of Edenton, do hereby solemnly engage not to conform to the pernicious custom of drinking tea, or that we, the aforesaid ladies, will not permit ye wear of any manufacturer from England, until such time that all acts which tend to enslave this, our native country, shall be repealed. Hear, hear!
These women of Edenton put it all on the line that day. They risked their reputations, their livelihoods, even their lives. For some, the stakes were just too high, but for 51 of them, it was a call to duty.
Penelope, my husband, he'll lose everything. I can't do it.
So after this resolution, this Edenton Tea Party, the resolutions that these women put together were created, it was sent to a newspaper in England and printed in a London publication. And this ended up becoming completely mocked by the people in England. And there was a cartoonist who actually created a little cartoon about the Edenton Tea Party where he very much poked fun about the women and made them look like they were loose and immoral women, unfit for motherhood, not very bright. He found a way to slander them in this cartoon because he had been creating a list of cartoons about all of these little mini revolutions. And It's interesting because it probably caused a lot of embarrassment back home. However, it shows us how significant the Edenton Tea Party was, because if it was significant enough for them to put it in their newspaper at the time, then it clearly was ruffling some feathers.
Very proud that, the ladies here from our community took a stand and, stood up to what they saw as tyranny and the overreach of government, and tried to even though they themselves were denied much really role in government or representation, they used what influence they did have to try to make the world a better place, I think. And I think they were thinking of their children and future generations that were going to live here. I think they wanted the world to be better for their kids and grandkids and great-grandkids.
I think it's important for everybody to learn about the Edenton Tea Party, no matter what your position or your job or what role you have in life, because it teaches us that no matter what position we are in, we can all contribute. And there were so many things stacked against the women of Edenton at that time, but they did it anyway. And we should never disregard our voice. We should never think that we don't have the power to make change.
In every generation, proud Americans have had to resist those who would encroach on our liberty, dispossess us of our property, and attempt to rule us from afar without regard for our will and heedless of our voices. But as for you, will you stand idly by, or will you enact your convictions? Will you protect that which you have inherited, granting an even greater portion of liberty to your children? Or will you sit back as tyrants revoke the gifts for which we risked all to secure for you? Please remember us, because in doing so, you will remember who you are. And, God willing, take your place among the courageous, liberty-loving Americans who, at great cost, gifted you the liberties you now possess.